The evening and the morning was the first day. Now, most of you, I'm sure, will realise or associate that readily with the first, I think it's the first chapter of Genesis in the Bible. But just listen to it again, bearing in mind we're in the constellation of Libra, and we've just had the equinox, where things are equalized, the equalization of day and night. So let's say that again. The evening and the morning was the first day. You may sort of get a realization from this as just how compartmentalized this control system basically coerces everybody. So most people will hear evening and think of the end of the day when there's diminishing daylight. But what about the evening? The evening up of things, the levelling out of things. What about hearing it in that context? The evening and the morning was the first day. What is it said? What is that saying? Red sky in the morning is a shepherd's warning. Now bring that into the equation. The evening and the morning was the first day. So as the light diminishes, there then follows a morning. Where are we going with this, you'll probably wonder. Everywhere and nowhere would be the answer to that, because I feel that the majority of people fail to grasp the sheer complexity of this hidden hand and this operating system that permeates and affects every second of every day of your life. And it starts before you're even born. The odds would seem stacked so greatly that it's a wonder that anybody sees through any of it. Yeah, we can all find bits. We can all be looking for who's behind it, what's behind it. Is it this group? Is it that group? I would actually be more concerned. Well, let's just give that group a name, shall we? Let's call it You Know Who. United Nations Organization and World Health Organization. So it's You Know Who. We'll just use that as an umbrella term, because if you come to the realization that these governments, these things that govern your mind, because you're not capable of making a decision for yourself, you're not capable of deciding for yourself if something is just vile and stirring up hatred, or it's something that's suitable for children to watch. I've mentioned this one before, for example, that Oompa Loompa boat where it goes through the tunnel in the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Just look at Gene Wilder's face and the way he's like relishing in the way those children, and even the parents, are looking a bit disturbed by these, well, they are disturbing scenes. And why is that even allowed for children to see that? And I'm not talking about what it would do to the conscious mind, but everything is taken in through the two eyes. What is that doing to the psyche? Things like that. And that's just one example. Don't get compartmentalized. Remember, the devil is in the detail. Once you see the blueprint to these things, you don't actually have to look very far, because you'll see the same patterns played out over and over again. the world really is a stage. The Bible is basically a spiritual history that plays out every day. What changes is the stage set, the period that it's set in, the character appearance, the character names may change, but the archetypes and the story remains the same every time, and every time is every day. These things just keep playing out over and over again. So we're not going to focus on the you-know-who, because it's a hidden hand. All it requires is a light that is shining so bright upon it that there is nowhere for it to hide. The amazing thing about this whole control system is it has absolutely no power. What it has is it's a virtuoso at deceit, usury, coercion, trickery, bribery, you name it. It's got the whole arsenal of all of these things at its disposal, but that is all it's got. It is very much of this material realm, and it will fight to the death to hold on to what it's got because it is soulless. It is like that legal fiction, that ID that you're told is you, which is not you at all. That's just a label that's applied so you can be tracked and traced, because this hidden hand is a usurer and it wants a slice of every pie. But it doesn't want to put anything in to get it apart from speculating. It will invest money on paper into it if it knows it's going to get a good return on it. Life force energy, for example. Most people will, oh, that's just woo-woo and not real. Okay, you want to think that? That's up to you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just saying what I'm giving you a perception, a personal experience, perception of how I see things. You have every right to agree or disagree. It's entirely up to you. But rather than focus on who to point the finger at, let's just stop for a moment, because this world is all a reflection. Now let's have a look at a story. And it is just a story. It's a spiritual history that's played out every day. Now you've got three crosses. You've got this Jesus character in the middle, and you've got two robbers, one either side. One is the past and one is the future. We can apply a Rudolf Steiner analogy to this. We can call one Lucifer and we can call the other one Ahriman. Jesus, who represents all of humanity, is caught in the crossfire between the two. Now the one that represents the past is the Luciferic impulse. That's the bringer of light. That was a role that had to be played. I'm going to have to jump a little bit on with this one. Now if we take the opening of Wagner's Ring Cycle, it starts with a continuous E-flat major chord being played. Now that's just representing potential. The E-flat, it's the E goes with the gut. You've got your root, then you've got your pleasure zone, your sacral chakra, and then you've got your place of the sun, your solar plexus. That's your E-flat, is a musical chord. Now that just plays and stays there, but it's never going to go anywhere. It's got to do something. It's got to play out. The drama has to be played out. So in that story, the Rhine maidens, who basically represent the serpent, are saying the ring this gold in the Rhine is a symbol of natural beauty. But the one that can renounce love and fashion that ring, fashion it into a ring, can have ultimate power in the material sense. But you have to renounce the strongest force that there is, the most natural thing that there is, which is love. And of course, that is what happens. It may seem a little bit foolish to say that, but the story has to play out. That's the equivalent of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. It's it's the bringer of the light. This has to be played out, and it is played out every day. So returning to the scene with the 3 crosses, so you've got the 2 robbers. One is the past, one is the future. And on an individual level, most people are robbed by one or the other. You're either living in a world of regrets where I wish I'd done it this way, or I wish that hadn't happened, so you're living in the past. You're trying to turn back time, which is a bit silly. Many have tried to do this, but unless you've got a time machine, you're going to have a real problem with that one. Many other people are worrying about the future, worrying about an old age and saving money up for an old age that they may not even get to. So you're being robbed one way or the other. But right at that last moment, the one that represents the past says, we deserve to be here, but he doesn't. To which this Jesus character turns round and well, not turns round, but voices, you are forgiven. Even in that 11th hour, because the one that represents the past takes responsibility. Because the past has already been. That can't be changed, but you can come to that self-realization and take responsibility for your actions and then address them accordingly. And it starts with that self-acknowledgement within oneself, facing your shadow self, and you will be forgiven. And you then go with that central character in that center cross. Now I would suggest that you've got the mutable cross representing the Luciferic principle. You have the cardinal cross in the middle that represents man at its highest level, who will basically resurrect. The spirit will ascend, will rise up. And then you have a possible future, which is the Aramanic principle, which is a complete cut-off from that spiritual connection, which will leave a very material outlook and a very material and very finite, pointless existence. It's the atheist's dream, basically, that would make life absolutely pointless. And it's like, well, what is the point of doing anything if there's nothing afterwards? But it would be, as suggested in the book of Thomas, he who blasphemes against the Father will be forgiven, he who blasphemes against the Son will be forgiven, but he who blasphemes against the Spirit will find no place in heaven or upon earth. What could that possibly be? I feel that is something that has been rolled out since 2020. But it's not all doom and gloom, because it's a game of Russian roulette, and it will depend on the serial number and the batch number, of course, because it's like a game of Russian roulette. Now, who would have knowledge of which numbers are which? Well, there would be only one group somewhere that would be very much hidden away. Probably one of these things that if it ever comes out, it's like, oh, it won't be disclosed for at least 150 years. By which time it'll be, who cares? Because it's lost all relevance by that stage. People are so desensitized to so much. It's just a shame that the amount of passion and emotion that comes out when a local sports team loses, like a soccer match or something, you get this outcry over a game where it's a subtle way of getting people to compete against humans, to compete against other humans. But if it's something that really matters, like an issue like human trafficking, where's the outcry? Where's the real outcry? Where's the righteous indignation and sorting that one out? People are so desensitized to everything, unfortunately. This is just an echo chamber, really. I'm just talking to myself. I know this. Well, there are some of you that will listen and say, yeah. Maybe it will be that literal. It'll be 144,000. Well, wouldn't it be better to be one of those 144,000? I think there's enough there of a gene pool to start again with that. I am totally indifferent to everything that goes on. Not that I don't care, otherwise I wouldn't be saying any of this. But I have no right to interfere with anybody's free will as to how they deal with things, how they perceive things. But there are lots that are very close-minded and dogmatic. I mean, God backwards is dog, and it's dogmatic. It's not coming naturally from, and it's not coming spiritually from the gut, which would be godmatic. It's dogmatic because it's been inverted. And there are plenty of dogmas. You've got various religions, and by that I'm saying science, the sciences as well, because they're all peer-reviewed within that community, within that sect, in the same way that there's another sect that will decide what is going to be said in a sermon on a Sunday in the longest running play, The Comedy of Errors, in all churches. Because it's a literalized story and been turned into some history that never was. It's not based on a lie, but it's been turned into a lie. It's in much the same way that a lie can take on a life, like how many boys have wanted to be an astronaut, for example. So it doesn't even have to have a grain of truth into it for it to grow, any more than what some people would class as a weed, as opposed to a flower, and although that's being judgmental because it's all nature. And what you would class as weeds, maybe I'd look into these things again and ask yourself why things like dandelions are classed as weeds, and why gardening has been given this perception of it's hard work and you don't really want to do it. How about it's maybe taking you out of contact with nature, and you're not making that natural connection with nature. It's severing, firewalling off that connection, even through that. So effectively, humanity is caught in a crossfire between two impulses. One is luciferic, and the other one is Aramanic. One will dissolve the individuality. That's the luciferic principle. It will basically strip away the individuality, and you become part of a spiritual. You'll be lost in the spiritual soup, in the same way that if you put a drop of paint into water, it'll just become imperceptible. And effectively like a perception of a black hole that you'd be sucked into and just nothing. Which isn't particularly pleasant, if you think about it. The alternative that is also making an assault on the life force of humanity. It's this very materialist one. I feel that you can see which is the worst of the two. But between the two, there is a middle path, of course. That is the Christ consciousness. It's nothing to do with some mythical saviour that came 2,000 or so years ago, and it's an archetype. It's something to emulate. It is something to find within oneself. It is from the solar plexus, the gut feeling, the God feeling. God, gut, it's the same word. Gut, gut, it's from the German. See, from the German, it carries on basically from what I said, Germany. Well, the germ, like a wheat germ, it's something that's there to grow. So if we look at the chakra system, you've got the place of the sun, the solar plexus, represented by the colour yellow. But there's it's got to fall two places. It's got to go right down to the root. It's exactly the same way a seed grows in nature. It grows in the darkness. And that seed will put out a shoot, which becomes a root. So it goes down to the root. Now it starts growing upwards towards the light. And of course, after the solar plexus, the place of the sun, you've got the Divine Mother. You've got the heart. Home is where the heart is. Then you've got the throat chakra, which is the communication. Now, as much as anything else, it's an internal dialogue within oneself. Then you come to the sixth chakra, which is the mind's eye or the third eye. So it's basically rising up the Jacob's ladder, which is the spine, the 33 vertebrae. Oh, look, shock horror, there's that evil number, 33. That's not an evil number. If you think about it, it's fractalized. If you were to reverse one of those threes, give it its mirror image, now you've got two threes like opposing each other. But if you were to bring them together, it becomes an 8. It becomes a symbol of infinity. Because that is what you are. You are an infinite being. But you are not the physical body. You are not the legal fiction, the labels and things. You are not whatever occupation or whatever you're interested in or whatever accolades and things you've got after your initials after your name. You're none of those things. That's just something in this material play-out realm. It's just an identity. It's a persona, basically, which is not you. It's just a husk, a shell that you're wrapped in. I can use a Rudolf Steiner one to explain this as well. You've got the mineral kingdom, which only has a physical body. It is a life force. It does have an energy in it. Crystals, for example. Some say they don't, but there is definitely something in crystals, and I'm talking from personal experience with raging toothache, a piece of amber placed against the side of my face, the pain dissolved within seconds. I'm talking that kind of pain where the nerve endings are on fire, where even the slightest touch is like an electric shock, that sort of intensity of pain. Now, a piece of amber just gently touched against the skin in the affected area, and I felt that pain dissolve in seconds. So as far as I'm concerned, just on that basis alone, maybe it is just from generated thought, and if I believe it is true, it will be true, because we are co-creators. So what I create from my thoughts. So it doesn't even have to be true as such. It is true from the point of view of it was my experience that I went through, and that's my testimony on it. Where are we going with this? lost my train of thought. One moment. Yes, so what I would really like to focus on is not the ones that are putting out these stories, because that is all they're doing from the perception. This thing, whatever you want to call it, you know who, it's just putting out stories. But what really is the problem? There's that saying, you are your own worst enemy. While you are accepting all these scripts that you don't know to be true, all these things you cannot put your hand on your heart and say, I know 100% this is true. That could be a story about an earthquake somewhere in the world, or something that may or may not have happened in history, or a moon landing, or you name it, anything. If you accept and go along with any of these scripts, you are enacting and taking a role on the world stage. You've accepted a part in that play. It could even be that you join a military force, a nation's army, and you go and defend that story. You don't even have to join the military. You can defend a position because your government has your best interests at heart. Don't you realise that? They're looking out for you. No, they're not. They're just users. They're just on the take out of everything that you do. This thing wants a bit of it without putting anything into it. But people would rather put up, even if they know deep down inside that things aren't right. It's too unpleasant to face yourself, isn't it? How awful that is. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Who is the laziest of them all? Who won't look in that mirror? Who won't see themselves for what they really are? Who won't see that beyond that false persona that has been attached to you? These are the questions that I would ask myself. These are the questions that I would invite you all to ask yourselves. So who are the agents that are operating these scripts? Think about that. Who is enacting? Why is this thing seemingly so complex? That saying about you are your own worst enemy comes to mind straight away. Now what if, and this is in a playlist, The Heart is Not a Pump, but the heart has a cellular structure. It is the same amount of water percentage-wise as the brain. The heart and the brain both have 73% water. The heart actually has a brain. Now, what if you were coming from that brain? Coming from the heart. So everything you're about to do or say, you check in with yourself and say, now, is this coming from the heart? Is this the best way I could say it? Is this the kindest way to say it? I feel if you can do that, then you won't go far wrong. But coupled with that is to recognise these patterns and not be coerced, cajoled, and forced into things that you know from your heart are not right. It's an individual's choice to do this, though. But have you got it in you? Is it within you? Are you a sovereign being? Are you able to stand in your power, no matter what the rest of the world says, does, thinks? You might seem like you're the only one. Well, isn't everybody looking for the one? Well, which one are we looking for? What is the one? Has it ever occurred to you that it may be you? You are the one. It's the one inside you. That might be a good place to start with oneself. Because how many people have gone down rabbit holes and have ever come back with a definitive answer? There is an infinity. And part of that infinity are these rabbit holes, because you'll never find the bottom of them. They will just keep going and going and going. But how many years do you want to, of your currency, do you want to spend, of your finite currency called life? How much of that are you prepared to spend wading through these dark tunnels, through these rabbit holes, trying to find the light? It is a warren. I feel it would be better to go inside and look for the light. Save yourself a lot of footsteps, a lot of years. I'm talking from experience again, because I can reflect on how many years in some ways, have flitted away and wasted. But they're not, but it all builds upon, they're all experiences. That's what we're here to do, to collect experiences. And learn from those experiences and spiritually grow. So really, I suppose this is an open invitation to step inside, open that door inside yourself, step inside your heart, go deep within your heart to the very center of your being, the very core of your being, and just sit there and just let it come. Now, to use an Alan Watts quote, when you realize who you are, you'll find a button marked surprise. And it gets to a point where you just got to press it, and here we are. Fractalized, there's your Big Bang Theory. Individual expressions of one, of which we all are. It's whether you come to that self-realization, real eyes, it's eyes as in all of you, but it's a single eye within all of you, but it's expressed as real eyes. So it's easy to mishear it and think we're talking about two physical eyes. We're talking about the mind's eye. We're talking about the heart's eye. And of course, the one chakra I didn't mention was the seventh one, which is the one that's actually outside the body. It sits slightly above, and that's the crown, the corona, the one that will light up when you become Christed, when you've gone through this Kundalini rising. And again, from personal experience, I would say it is as Neville Goddard explains it. From my own personal experience, I've had the first three phases. I'm now waiting for number 4. I have a very good idea exactly when that's going to be, right down to the day. But I'm not going to just pin my hopes on that. It's about being, it's about taking active steps, it's about putting into practice and being. The world is a stage. My recommendation is you pick a star role. You live it, you breathe it, you become it. Be the best possible version of yourself that you can be, which is going to be heart-centered, all in the balance. So we're right back to where we started. the equinox, the equalization. If we go with what science says, the Earth has got a tilt, which is only like 23.5 degrees. So my question would be, how many individual souls would it take to restore that balance, to bring that equality back and bring things into alignment, both on the linear and on the vertical, so the cross is righted, so you can go on that middle path. I mean, you could say it's like the true north and the magnetic north. It's, if you think about it, that forms a V shape. So if you can see that one, see that letter V expressed in that, it would imply that it wouldn't take a lot to actually bring things back into balance, surely. Because there's what would seem to be this huge elaborate system in place. Well, it's only huge and an elaborate system because all of humanity is taking these scripts and enacting it. But by its very implication, the fact that there is this huge thing in place that affects every moment of every day of your life implies that there is something deep within inside yourself that this system does not want you to find. I wonder what that could be. Are you curious to find out for yourself? Because I can talk you through it to some degree, but I can't take you there. Only you can take you there. You have to do it yourself. No one is going to save you except you, basically. But how much do you want it? How much are you prepared to put an effort in to find it? Because it is going to be a shit journey. It's going to be awful at some days. You're going to feel like, I wish I'd never started this. I wish I'd stayed blissfully ignorant and never gone down this route. And I understand people feeling that way. Because it does feel like that you're crazy. It feels like the whole world is against you, as it were. Nobody else can see it. But what actually happens is you do start to find people on the same wavelength, the same frequency. Things strike chords. To make a chord in music requires more than one key or more than one note being played. That's when we come together, we become a chord, we become a core us, a chorus, the core of us. And the core is right down the middle, it's that center path. Wow, that's quite a long one, quite deep, but it's a very deep subject because you're in a realm where what seems so vast is actually very limiting in this physical material realm, and actually this is the rabbit hole. This is the end of the rabbit hole. It can't get much more solid than this. But the infinite, the expansive cosmos, the universe that you seek is actually within inside yourself, because everything is inside out and backwards in this reality. This is the cosmic joke. This is the divine comedy of it all. But what a fantastic game. What an absolutely beautiful game. I'd do it again. I'd do it all again because this is absolutely brilliant. I know it might not seem it at times, but wow. And to think or to know that you're an expression of the very thing that created it all, and you can say, I made this. I mean, how beautiful is that, eh? So I'm going to leave that there, and may you find it inside yourself. May you find your true essence inside yourself and recognize the I amness that is within you.